Hello, everybody. How are we all doing today? Welcome to the Clipit
Ooh,
podcast,
it's a
and
nice new background.
we are joined by my two favorite people, Agent Oink and Delicious. How are we both doing today?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
good.
I'm good, thanks.
Great
Good to
to
see. We're
hear.
good.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, we've changed this up a little bit. I say we. I've changed this up a little bit. I just wanted to go a bit more simplistic. Um, I I had
Excuse me.
I had one of those shower moments. That sounded weird. I had one of those shower thought moments where I was just thinking, and I was like, I just want to go more simplistic and worry about the final outcome rather than the current thing that's happening. Like, make sure like when it comes to like, I don't want to concentrate all on the audio. I want to concentrate on both visual and audio. You know, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense in my head.
Yeah.
Makes
So
sense, yeah.
I just thought I'd simplify this, make it more sort of like I've been looking at other podcasts out there and kind of looked at what they did and kind of based it off a couple of my favorite ones out there. So yeah, but it's good to see you here as always, you two. How's your days going?
Yeah, fairly standard, I suppose. Actually been a bit of a slower one, but yeah, day's been alright.
Sounds good.
Yeah, mine's been alright. Not got too much done, but got a lot planned for the rest of the day and after the podcast, so it's gonna be good.
Oh, decent.
Ooh.
It's mine's. I think mine's similar to Phelan's. Really, it's been a very slow day today. Getting ready for the podcast, doing the overlays. Which I actually did yesterday. But yeah, it's just been a very slow one, honestly. It feels weird. At dinner, that was literally the only thing I was excited for because we got a takeaway today. But apart from that, yeah, it's just been a very, very slow day. Got work tomorrow, so yay, I guess. But money, you know. I was thinking the other day that I don't know if anybody has this as well, but I have those sort of days where I go into work and I can't be asked. I don't care. I just do the minimum amount of work and then leave. Then I'll have other days where I go in, or it tends to be weeks, but I'll go in and I feel good about doing it. I know I'm making money doing something, and so I'll put more effort into it and enjoy it. And it's the weeks where it feels like shit. I just hate. So yeah, but I don't know. It depends on what side of the bed I wake up, I guess.
Yeah, it can be like that, I think, sometimes, but that's how it be.
How it be. But yeah, no, this week has been a very interesting week. Someone tried to drift a boat in the Suez Canal. That was certainly interesting. We had the BAFTA Gaming Awards and the Future Gaming event. So we got a few games revealed, and yeah, it was definitely interesting when it comes to technology and gaming in general. So yeah, it's anything that's happened this week that's interested your interested either of you?
Sorry, do you wanna go?
No, you, please.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a weird week. We had the Future Gaming show, which was something I wasn't really like looking forward to. I kind of just heard about it like the day before and was like, sure, I'll watch that. And it was a weird thing. Like, I don't know. It was something odd. Like there was some interesting stuff shown off. Don't get me wrong, but it was also kind of like it's like the intro to it where they did like the pre-show that wasn't a pre-show and was just an advert for one company. And there was just some
Yeah.
weird bits about it that kind of made it all feel a bit off.
Bit underwhelming from the big companies as well. Well, some of the big ones.
Yeah, I would say so. Then we just sort of had like the drama going on around the Suez Canal and what happens when you accidentally crash a 22,000-ton container ship
In a very busy area.
in like the world's most important waterway. You know, it's been a pretty weird time, to be honest.
No, I would 100% agree. It is definitely been. I don't know. It's a weird one to explain. Like that Suez Canal, I wasn't aware of it straight away, so I learned of it a little bit after it happened. And the first thing that came to my mind was, how is my honest opinion? My honest answer is just, how did that happen? Like, how do you mess up something that severe in such a it's such a weird,
I mean, yeah,
weird situation?
I still find it like I understand why, obviously, and like how, but I find it odd that in today's world, like wind is still a factor.
Was it?
Yeah, I think
It's
this is something I've discussed with a few friends. The people like you must have been like
Windstream.
a bad driver to crash a ship when wind wind. And I'm like, yeah, but imagine like being a container ship, right? You have a lot of surface area. Like if you have a
absolutely, yeah.
strong wind hitting any side of you, like that's quite a lot of strength. And if
It
you
is.
fuck it up and start losing control, like it's
Mm.
gonna be pretty hard to recover from that.
And you
It's
can
not so
see in the
much that
tracking, like they go pretty much like bank to bank. They go from one end, end
Yeah.
up swerving to the left, and then it's hard right.
and anyone that's aware of like piloting planes or sailing ships of any size, like you do have that issue of like. But when you start to lose control, it can be very hard to regain control, even if the initial loss of control is not necessarily like that easy to happen, right? Like if you fuck up, you can like be fine. But once you fuck up past that point, it can be really hard to recover.
It can definitely snowball. Like
Yeah.
a very like talking about planes. If you have a little bit of turbulence, if you don't know how to overcome that, or you just don't know how to fly a plane, that can really snowball into you.
Delete the air.
Yeah, breaking it, flipping over. Not you could easily snowball the situation out into something very severe. I don't know. I haven't read anything into this. The incident, but wasn't there an issue with the steering? Or was
I
that
heard
just something I heard?
original claims about like there was some sort of power outage that also affected the rudder. From what I understand, though, we won't know anything
Yeah.
probably until after it's freed. Like we won't know for sure
If it ever
what
is.
they're gonna say happened. If it ever
See,
is.
see
We
the
have such
annoying
little
thing
faith
about
in them.
ships is the black box is actually installed right at the tip, in the underneath. So as it's crashed into the side and buried itself into the bank, we actually can't get to the black. It's a real shit now.
That's why the digger's there. Actually, it's just that
Yeah.
black box.
They don't care about the ship. That's not.
That's
an
my
issue.
favourite picture. Is that digger? Or I say little. It's tiny compared to it, but it's quite a big digger. It looks like the pictures I've seen looks like it's trying to push it out of the bit it's stuck in.
Also, yeah, I think a lot of people fail to realize how big container ships are. Like it's very easy in a picture to look at like that's a big ship that has a lot of containers on it. But like once you actually like properly get a scale, like they're fucking massive.
Has anyone released a VR experience yet of the fucking stuck Suez Canal? I think this could be it. This is how we get people to understand.
That sounds amazing. That sounds actually so good.
That is no, just no.
Recreated from audio and camera aboard the Ever Given.
I do kind of wonder. I know there aren't many shipping simulators out there that I know of, at least. I know there are a few. I wonder to what detail they model these canals, and if we should try and find one that's either cheap or free and do like a canal challenge where we either try and go down the Panama or the Suez, or to be fair, even like the little canals like in the England countryside. Even
I'd be totally down for
difficult.
that.
Yeah, let's fucking do it.
I don't know. Again, I really do not know what like the situation is with simulation and ships
So-
in that sense. But if there's some good stuff out there, sounds pretty fun.
So just because we've spoken about this a couple times about how nobody realizes how big the actual container ship is. To put it into perspective, it's as long as 4 football pitches, or if you want a better idea of that, it's as long as 36 London double-decker buses.
Yeah, thanks. That really gives me a better perspective.
And it's also the same height as the Princess Tower in Dubai, which is 101 stories.
Again, wow, I'm really
Very
glad.
specific. Okay, if you want an actual perspective, it is 1.5 times longer than the Titanic. Everybody's seen the Titanic, so everybody knows how long that is.
I will admit, I haven't seen the Titanic actually.
Oh
Actually,
damn!
DiCaprio, if he's listening, now knows exactly what the scale of this incident is. Him and Rose.
So for those of you that are normal, it's 400 meters in length. It has a 60-meter beam and a 50-meter draft, whatever. I don't fucking know how it's pronounced in terms of ships. I presume draft, but I don't know ship terms. Like it's pretty goddamn big.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger than a boat.
What does that even mean? It is a boat.
No, it's a shipping container. They're different classes.
It's a shipping container. It's one really long shipping container is stuck across the Suez
I
Canal.
just want to send this picture in our chat because I keep
Oh,
seeing this
please.
article talking about the crash.
It's 23 shipping containers wide. Okay, that clears it all up, right?
We'll talk about this in a moment. But I keep seeing this article about Crash Bandicoot and how you need to be online to play a game that's only single player.
Okay.
And this is the
jump
thumbnail that I keep seeing for it,
Good lord.
and it's the
Okay,
best
I've not seen that
thumbnail
yet.
I've
That is
ever
horrifying.
seen.
We could get that up for the stream. I need to see that one.
Okay,
Oh,
I'll get it up for the stream.
just
But I'm
Um,
not sure. Yeah, well, I'm not sure what your policy with the new overlay is in separation of audio and visual content. That's the thing. But I'm not sure if you saw. There's good footage of the actual crash occurring from ship tracking that I put in my server.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, it
Very
is
impressive.
surprising. I think people underestimate weather. Like we live in with all the technology and advancements we have, we still really can't tell the weather to a degree.
No,
Um,
damn weather.
yeah, it's one of those ones that you would have thought we would have had some sort of
Yeah.
advancement in. Like we definitely have come a long way, but it's still not as far as I
I
expected
mean, we're
it to
pretty
be.
good at telling the weather. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I think we're like pretty goddamn good at telling the weather. Predicting the weather, though,
Mhm.
that we're not very good at. Responding to it in certain vehicles, also not very good at.
True. Never.
The
No, you carry on. Sorry.
okay, the top-rated shipping simulators on Steam currently, and I don't know. I don't know obviously to what scale they simulate the world, or if it's just like you select a scenario and it renders everything it needs to, sort of thing. Doesn't bother with canals. But both of them have 3 or less stars on Steam. Whereas, oh my
yeah.
god, scrolling down a bit, there's a mobile phone one that has 4 stars. So I know which one I think I'd recommend. Oh dear, oh dear.
Right.
Need Microsoft again. I mean, I suppose we could use the icons in Microsoft Flight
I was
Sim.
thinking that could be a good fun sort of thing if we can't find a
We'd
ship.
struggle to get them stuck, like even with us.
I mean, we would.
surely.
I had a quick look. Sadly, I'm struggling to find a ship mod for Microsoft Flight Simulator, which I was hoping would exist. Because that would be amazing. But I very much understand why it does not yet exist,
Drop a
if it
game
ever
in
will.
chat if you know of one where you have big slow boats and narrow canals, and we'll see
War
if we
Thunder.
can get a list
I would
together.
love to take a container ship down like the Birmingham canals. That would be amazing.
That would be a challenge.
Yeah. No. Do we have? Is there been much news on how we intend to get it out?
Yes.
I mean,
Make lighter, dig it up a little bit, try and pull it out. Basically, I heard it's moved
Yeah.
a couple of inches.
Oh wow.
I know the initial
Yeah.
response was pretty much to like just hope that it didn't get wedged that much
Hmm.
and give it a good tug with your tugs. And they put a lot of tugs on it, and it didn't fucking move like anywhere because it is well and truly wedged in there. So they've been digging it out a bit and hoping that eventually they'll get it loose enough that they can refloat it and it'll continue on its way. And as I saw a great tweet, the fucking moment that thing is free, you have to be so tempted if you're driving it to not recrash it, because it would be the funniest fucking thing a human has ever done, is to just immediately recrash it into the bank. Like, oh, the resistance you have to have, the self-control is amazing. Nautilus
would be.
appears to be good.
I'm glad you're not a tug driver.
Tug it into the fucking edge. No, it is very. It is one of those weird things that we just didn't. I don't know. It just didn't expect to happen. I guess I feel like it hasn't happened sooner, because that is a small ass
Yeah.
canal compared to the boats we put through it. So, I'm surprised it's taken this long. I remember you saying they're planning on extending or making it wider. But
Yeah, Egypt's been under a project to expand it for a good few years now. It's meant to be completed in a few years' time, I believe.
so it has been expanded.
I believe parts of it have, or they've made preparations. I'm not sure exactly how it's going down.
Yeah. Okay.
But in general, yeah, like there's not been much work put towards expanding it. It's kind of just sat there as it's
need
been for quite a
big
while.
rails on either side that then like little rollers come out, so it just guides the ship through.
No, it needs rails on the end like you have on a bowling alley, so it just bounces off them. Eventually carries on down the middle.
We could just make a conveyor belt.
Just make a gutter, so if it falls off the edge, it just carries on down.
Or make a giant lock at one end and then just like have a giant water slide, and I wouldn't even have to do anything. I've seen some, shall we say, creative ideas for getting it out suggested by Twitter users.
Yeah, there's been a few interesting ones.
I'm surprised, to be honest. Has the EU done much to help them out, or any other country?
There's a specific group to call out.
Oh no, it's just because I saw an article about the EU, so I just saw the EU. But like, I mean, is the EU or America or anybody like offered to help out?
Yeah, I believe the US Navy has been somewhat involved. I imagine
this is why we Brexited.
I imagine
we
in general
better involvement in the Suez Canal.
Yeah, I imagine in general the general summary. I'm not an expert, but my guess would be that in general, yes, to some degree, NATO forces and NATO countries have probably put some of their resources towards helping, because a lot of those countries make a lot of money from the things that go through the Suez, and are currently not making as much money because, well, they're making the exact same amount of money, just on a slight delay.
Yeah.
But
well, you said, yeah, that again, we're going back on another stream.
I found a question. You'll be happy to hear this. Someone was looking for a good shipping simulator, and Reddit came to their rescue and suggested Sea of Thieves.
For God's sake.
No, there's plenty of areas where you can do the same thing.
Times.
Yeah, but I've already gone through the narrow areas in Sea of Thieves. I know how that game works.
That would be amusing. Again, like, that's one of those games they just haven't added anything to in a long time, which is just disappointing.
Content updates to it for a long time.
Yeah, now they've gone to seasons.
Yeah, still waiting for them to add the gameplay though.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, the only reason, as mentioned, the reason I mentioned EU, so I saw an article about them, and apparently the EU want to get or purchase 20,000 GPUs to build a machine capable of running a full simulated twin Earth, which, you know, interesting. Someone was in the article. Someone was talking about how they found a GTX 1660 for £800. So, you know, they're quite affordable these days, as we're all well aware about.
I think I found a simulator under development.
A simulator under development. Ooh.
Yes, the North is home.
Yeah.
Yeah. That looks pretty good from the images. But yeah.
It's a boat simulator?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good point. There hasn't really been any good boating simulators. Like, there's been a couple.
To be fair, we wouldn't be the experts on. I just want to start by saying.
But from what short research I did then, there is a very short list overall, and a lot of them are like that German simulator made in 2013 has a mostly negative review on Steam. So it's like, wow,
they're either old or they're like scenario based.
Yeah, because I can only think of one.
Like, Microsoft Flight Simulator, but boats.
I mean, I suppose, what's the biggest plane? Is it the 747 in Flight Sim? We could try flying that low, but again, I still think that'd be too easy. Oh no, we definitely have to find out.
It would be interesting if Microsoft Flight Sim got boat support, because I don't feel like it's like not to cramp on anyone's boating style that has a boat, but I don't think flying boats in a simulation flying boats. God damn it. Yeah, fuck it. I don't think flying boats is as popular an idea for the everyday like buying a simulator crowd much as wheeling planes is, right? So I feel like it would be like probably not at all in their interest to add boats to Microsoft Flight Simulator. But if it just became like Microsoft like vehicle simulator or something, and it had like planes and shit like in their Model Earth system that they currently have, like that would be cool as shit, because like that system is no doubt like the best way of doing a map in any simulator ever.
I 100% agree. I think that would be an amazing simulator in general, to be honest.
I think Microsoft Flight Simulator X has certain boat mods from what I'm seeing. So there might be a
time to reinstall.
Yeah, and we'd all have that available without having to pay or.
Also, can I just point out something? This is news as of 3 minutes ago.
Ooh.
There is
ooh,
a
breaking-
stuck Suez Canal mod for Flight Simulator.
What?
Let me put this into the chat.
Just add the ever given in to the map.
There you go. I'll just put it in chat.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
that's
This is
excellent.
amazing. Okay, we're definitely doing it with this at some point then.
Wow, perfect timing. Like they were
Oh.
listening to us, and then they just quickly. Oh my god, that's actually quite a good mod as well. Like they've
Mm.
done a not a half bad job on that.
So I have high doubts that this would work, Phelan, but just a warning.
Should we try and push it
There
out?
is a mod for Microsoft Flight Simulator that could import modded planes from Microsoft Flight Simulator X. So, theoretically, if those ships are implemented as planes in the
Yeah.
game, it might be able to
I've
import them into Microsoft Flight Simulator, which would be
found
a lot of hoops to hope that work, but
I
possible?
found a pirate ship for Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, so I don't know, maybe there is some hope.
Pirate ship.
People asking about cars. I'm not sure the road system's great in Flight Sim. Like,
Oh
the
my
ocean's
God.
fairly flat as things go, apart from, like, waves
Yeah.
and things. And I don't know how the game does with waves, actually, come to think of it.
I mean,
Yeah,
it has
the
to do a
roads are a
pretty
bit
good job,
bumpy.
considering that the icon seems to be done relatively
so I
well.
Yeah, I suppose they'd have to have put some effort into it.
Like, I never felt like I was being
So you can't go past the speed
treated
of sound.
incorrectly by the ocean when I was landed on it, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
We've
maybe.
got to find something to do here. There's definitely something.
Yeah, there's definitely.
Okay, so
We
got a
make
video
promise
coming
on at some point a future possible stream of some form of simulator content relating in some way to the Suez Canal.
Video.
Probably by the time it gets done, by so many layers removed that it's just like My Little
Yeah.
Pony or something.
Can I
but
just-
we'll get there.
can I just say something in chat?
Yeah,
It's just
say it in
it's
chat.
just the way that YouTube uploads videos, if they're in their natural resolution. There's someone's on an ultra wide.
Oh, you've never experienced
No.
the ultra wide.
But just watching a video when someone's recorded in natural
no.
ultra wide, it's just quite amusing.
Yeah.
I only
That's
went
how
to
that
that
goes,
video
like-
to get the mod file.
Epic. Yeah, if it
Um,
works, I suppose.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that would be interesting. We'll definitely figure something out for sure. Don't forget we've got our Desert Bus podcast we have to
Yep.
do soon.
Yeah, we've got
We've got
some
got a
good
lot of
coming up.
things to do at some point.
We're definitely gonna have to do a across Europe in Euro Truck. We're gonna have to
Yes.
get American trucks in.
I was thinking about
There's a
that.
lot to do. Oh, good lord!
I was thinking we'll have to do Euro Truck Sim just like across, just something fun.
Oh, but yeah, we're gonna have to go literally all the way across, including that Russia DLC that's coming up. But
And maybe we time it so when the Spain. Is it Spain or Portugal? Both.
both
Both.
Iberia. So yeah, that's.
We'll have to go from one literally all the way across.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do it like properly though, like
Yeah.
manuals and air brake simulated. Goddamn air brake simulation.
Yes.
Understand it.
That doesn't
Oh.
scare me.
Actually, okay. So to be fair, I've just realised this. Sorry. Wait, that is weird. Sorry, my Google results for a ship simulator are being weird.
Okay.
First of all, I have it set to 100 per page, but there's clearly not. Second of all, there's only 2 pages, despite there being 41 million results. So I'm not quite sure
Huh.
what's happening there. But hey, we can
We can definitely
Interesting.
figure something out.
yeah.
But
Yeah, we'll figure something out. I'm sure.
for sure. But yeah, no. Talking about new games, got a couple revealed this week.
We did.
Namely not Battlefield 6.
Mm.
But we've got a lot of indie games was announced, and some of them look quite good. Some of them
It Takes Two.
questionable.
I'm watching a playthrough of that. It actually looks pretty goddamn good. Like, the first one was all right. It was sort of a little bit gimmicky, like perhaps a bit of a tech demo.
Mm-mm.
Not to jump topic. I wanted to mention this like 10 seconds ago, but the tab wasn't loading, so I couldn't confirm. As far as I can tell, I don't know how reliable it is. There is a mod a Microsoft Flight Simulator that
Mhm.
does AI traffic like it does for planes, but for ships with models for like most ships. Like it's not going to be one to one
would
that
be
ship, but
incredible.
it will go to the nearest that they have a model for. So we might not even need the Suez Canal mod because we might just be able to go and see it there. We
Beautiful.
I would
actually have like all of the ships
absolutely be-
around it, which would be awesome.
Need to look into that one for sure. 'Cause there's a lot to do. I don't know what modding it's going to be like when you don't technically. I'm sure it'll be fine, but
Yeah. That's going to be decent, hopefully. But yeah, no, we got some. Yeah, It Takes Two, I think, was one of the star games from that, like good games, arguably. It from what I've seen, it looks really good, like a polished, fun co-op game. From at least some of the clips I've seen. So, yeah, no, yeah, I would agree that it. The first one they did, the name escapes my brain again. It was a
Way
good
Out?
concept, yeah. Way Out. It was a good concept for the idea. It was more. I think it was too linear, in my opinion, from the gameplay I remember seeing.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Although, I'm not sure. Neither of you have played A Way Out, have you?
No.
No.
Have either of you watched a full playthrough of it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. It'd be interesting to hear what your opinion is then, Phelan, on this. I think a lot of the reason it was somewhat linear is it had a very set story it wanted to tell.
Yep.
Which does not necessarily, and you can absolutely be critical of that idea in the concept of like that sort of co-op environment as a game. Right? Like I think it's entirely reasonable to say that the co-op game in that style shouldn't have such a linear story. Even though I
Ooh.
personally quite liked A Way Out, I thought it was a good game, a good enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're sticking with the you can play for free as the other player
With
system. Like in general, like they're doing a lot of positive stuff, and it looks pretty promising either way. So
I'd say with It Takes Two, from what I've seen so far, I'm about halfway through, like a full Let's Play. From what I know, the story is like, again, it's like a story it wants to tell, so it's very linear. There are still like obviously like a few areas, you know, where you had like the little almost like mini game-esque things where you go off and compete against someone. But for the
yeah,
most part, it does still just feel a lot more fleshed out. Like there's more to do. It feels a lot more co-op as well. Like whilst there were certain things in the past one, like where you had to help each other,
yeah. I mean,
you
again, I
almost
think
like
that
forced into it in a way. This is definitely a lot
that
more.
is like a very narrative thing. I would still say, in my opinion, I'm trying to do this if you're halfway through Let's Play about like a, spoiling.
Yeah.
I'm not going to straight up say the plot. I'm just like trying to think of a way to word it in the best way. But like there, like you say, I haven't seen a particularly, or I haven't seen as much gameplay of It Takes Two as I have A Way Out, and have played A Way Out myself. But like, there's a lot of stuff in A Way Out that that isn't like very co-op, right? Like there's co-op bits and pieces you can do throughout the thing. But there's also a lot of the story where you separate out a little bit, or you kind of do different things. Or, like there's the little bits and pieces that are there for narrative reasons. And I think for that reason, like I really like A Way Out. It's a good game, but I think the concept of like the dual co-op sort of style that they went for in like a very modern co-op environment can really be lent to like other games that are less story heavy, like in a way more successful and accessible way.
Yeah, that's fair. I would say like from what I've seen of A Way Out, I think the best way of describing it is it reminds me a lot of Tearaway, if you guys are familiar with that game. Or I guess another good example would be like Little Big Planet. I don't know why, it just very much reminds me of those sort of games. Or at least Tearaway especially. I don't know why, but it just reminds me so much of Tearaway, which I loved back on the PS Vita. I can't remember what the second one's called. It was Tearaway 2 something. Paper Cuts. But no, I get that sort of. I get that sort of fun story game with little mini puzzles to. It was just an enjoyable game with great characters, good writing, and in a wonderful little rich world. It looks genuinely like a lot of fun, and talking about what you were saying about same with It Takes Two and A Way Out, is there was a few games announced at this event that they're doing that same idea of co-op games or multiplayer games where, because it was Takes Two, and there was another one which is a spy game where only one of you needs to own it. And then your friend can play with you for free, which I like. I like that idea. I personally think that's one of the best things that come out of co-op games, at least in recent times, because the points they made, it is true. If you're playing a co-op game at home like you used to do back on your PS2, the other person didn't have to pay you 40 quid to play that game. You know, just one of you had to, the other one could play for free, you know? I love that
Yeah.
idea. And if you wanted to go halves,
And
you
then
can.
you'd steal their
but-
game off you.
Yeah, God. Or their memory cards to annoy them.
Oh,
But yeah, no, I think it is going to be really nice.
Yeah, the only slight downfall of that system is even in co-op games, the game also needs to lend itself in the way it's constructed to that system. Like it works really well in A Way Out because it being a very story-heavy game with a story to tell means that it's a game you don't regularly, repeatedly play.
Mm.
So the way I did it is I played with Universal Madness, and we went 50-50 on the cost. I technically was the one that ended up buying the game, but we played for it together. That made it very cheap, very accessible, and a very enjoyable experience. But you know, if it's the sort of game that has great co-op features, but you might want to play with more than one friend, or play, you know, like groups of people might end up in different pairs at different times to play said game. Then yeah, you end up with the issue of like it doesn't really apply in that situation. Like I'm speaking like not even reference to the games we're talking about, just in general of like the concept of co-op games that only one person has to pay for, because it really does also sort of lend to the correct style of gameplay, not just it being co-op.
Can you not have multiple saves? Or would that just get confusing?
Yeah, but you could. But if you're talking about a game where like multiple pairs in a big group of people, right?
Oh
If
yeah,
you've got 10 people and only one person has that game, that doesn't work. Like,
Very
like
true.
no matter how you do it, multiple people are gonna have to buy that game, and it's probably gonna end up being everyone if everyone wants to play with everyone eventually. But if it's a game that like you and someone else are just gonna play through once, it can kind of work.
no, that's true. Yeah, but I guess that's just the nature of that sort of co-op games in general. If you go over to someone's to play a co-op game and there's 10 people there, you all can't play at the same time. Sort of idea, like it's one of those situations where you can't really do, like, if you had 10 people in one house and you all playing a co-op game and taking it in turns, you can't really do that in an online sense. Sorry, just because I guess
It's
you
quite
could.
hard.
Yeah, no, I guess you could have like a central area where someone pays for a game on a service and then 10 people have access to it, but only 2 can play at one time, sort of thing. That makes sense. But
Yeah,
it
has a lot
again,
of,
it doesn't
service
work.
costs for the developers though. You have to like host the infrastructure
Yeah.
and have that work, which becomes then quite expensive. And the easiest way would probably be to just have a shared account among like a group of friends where you buy those games, and then you couldn't have multiple pairs playing at once, but then anyone could play with anyone. Someone just to log into that account, and then someone just needs to join for free. So yeah, I don't know. There's different ways of going about it.
I've just seen one of the silliest articles, man.
okay.
So I kind of referenced this, or spoke about it a little bit in the last podcast, but I didn't say too much about it because I wasn't too aware of the game. But I've read a bit more into it now, and I'm questioning it a bit. So the game I'm talking about is 6 Days in Fallujah, which was a game that was in development, I want to say a couple years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I think Ubisoft were publishing it or whatnot. But it was a game that went into some controversial parts of the Iraq War, and it kind of dealt with more, I guess, sensitive stuff, again, I will have to read more into the original story, but from what I'm aware, basically, it was getting a bit too controversial. People were like, "Is this really a good idea?" I think Ubisoft were like, we're gonna disband this. We're not gonna help it. So it went into like a development hell. Nobody picked it up for a while. Company picked it back up, and it's now back in development. And I just saw this article saying 6 days in Fallujah gameplay video looks like Call of Duty. And all I can think in my head is, don't most shooters look like Call of Duty? Don't most CODs look like Battlefield? Like, what do you mean by that
Yeah.
article? It's a shooter. They all have the same concept.
They do indeed. I'm just having a look through screenshots here. It's not a game I've not.
The best way I can say it, the gameplay. So they recently revealed gameplay because all we've had now is pre-rendered cutscenes and development talking in the background and all that. This was like a proper like, gameplay, I guess. Even though it didn't really look like gameplay. And the best way I can describe it is it looks a lot like Squad, but with the gunplay and the smaller close quarters of Insurgency Sandstorm. So, like, the best way I can say that is, if you've ever played Squad, if you ever played an early version of Squad, the M16 they use in this gun sounds almost identical to the one they did in Squad. I would go as far as saying they're using the same sound, maybe a pre-recorded bought sound online, because it sounds so similar.
Right.
Or they just shared assets, or even that's just what that gun sounds like, and they use the exact same sort of techniques to record it. Again, I don't know how I feel about this game, because it's going into this sort of it's going into the very nitty-gritty of a time, a war that isn't really spoken about. And I personally don't see it being needed. I can understand Squad going for the aesthetic, but it's a multiplayer game, so it doesn't go into any situations, doesn't go into any like it doesn't simulate what happened. It just gives you those tools, the weapons, the teams, and then just makes it like a Battlefield. You're in a sandbox shooter. Well, I don't see the need for them to make this game where it goes into this sort of situation of, well, there's a family, do you shoot them to make sure they're not terrorists, sort of situation? Because what's the point, personally? I just don't like it got shelved for a reason. I feel like it should have stayed shelved, honestly.
Okay, it's interesting. So I've not heard quite so much about it.
What game's this?
6 days in Fallujah.
Ah, yeah, it's the one I thought about. Yeah. Again, not an expert in the game. It's not my sort of game, so I haven't really looked at it because I just don't. I won't play it. I'm not interested. But from what I can tell, it's not just that it covers quote. From what I've seen discussed about in the circles I'm in, anyway, it's not just that it covers quite a complicated topic. It's that, from what I can tell, it shines a very, very, very pro-US outlook on the Iraq War, which is a bit of a problem when it's pretty much universally agreed that the US-UK invasion of Iraq was pretty wrong, pretty bad, and very much caused a lot of issues that we're still feeling the ramifications of today. So, like, I wouldn't feel personally comfortable playing the game even if it was my game, because it feels like a really weird thing to profit off that sort of event that is like very much one of the like number one. It's in the top 10 things of really shitty things the Western world has done in the past 50 years list.
Yeah,
it's not something I would feel comfortable playing for the sake of I'm having fun. It's the Iraq War. Like it's kind of. Like if you look at like the games that have covered like other wars, they generally cover the wars in a pretty like agreeable way, right? Like I don't think there's a particularly large amount of FPSs that cover World War II in a like Hitler was such an awesome guy and we all should do things. Don't take that out of context.
but the reason not to interrupt you, but I would argue that because the only one I can remember where there was a World War II single player was Call of Duty, and that glorified America being the best country in the world, sort of thing. Which this it's very hard to tell a story about a war without putting someone as the good guy, even though there is no good guy in a
I
war.
mean, yeah. But I mean, there's better guys in like World War Two, right? Like, I
Yeah.
am not a supporter of a lot of the stuff that happened in World War Two, and it should come as an immediate guess that I'm not a particular fan of what Nazi Germany did. Quite avidly not a fan. But also, the UK and France and America bombed civilians. A lot of them,
Hmm.
right? We did bombing runs that we knew weren't tactically useful in the war and didn't help us in any way defeat Germany. We still did them. Led to a load of random people dying that were just complete innocents. Like, a lot of bad stuff happened in the war.
And still to this
Um,
day, because there's so many bombs that didn't go off. I want to say it was like 20% didn't ever explode, and they're still missing
yeah.
somewhere in the ground in most of Europe.
So in general, I feel like when you cover these things, you need to have a very good moral sort of lens on it, and you really need to understand that these things are not everyone is good on this side and everyone is bad on this side, but also just that normally wars happen because of very bad situations.
Hmm.
Right, like the reason we ended up going to war against Germany in World War II, and I'm not talking like history class, here's the sequence of events, is that Nazi Germany was doing some horrific things,
Hmm.
right? Like some really horrific things. And everyone was kind of like, oh shit. And to not just discredit it, it was logical for us because we were all still very colonial in Europe. And it was in our interests to put Nazi Germany back into a small area. They were taking over a lot of Europe, and that's a lot of land we didn't want them to have. So there were reasons for Nazi Germany is doing bad things, like the Holocaust, etc. But also they're taking our land, which is a very European reason. And I think a lot of people often discredit that they're taking our land in the reasons a lot of us went to war, because you would like to think that it was this great moral ambition of, yes, Britain and especially in the UK, it's where like Britain needed to fight Nazi Germany. We had such great morals, and we were like, they're doing horrific things. It really wasn't like that significantly. Like, it was part of it. Don't get me wrong, but it's more complicated than just they were doing bad thing. We good guys. And it's the exact same thing with like the Iraq War. Is that like the Iraq War was done for reasons mostly for the monetary gain of the UK and the US because it was in our financial interest, and it resulted in a lot of really bad shit happening that is still happening. And in general, I think like the Iraq War is one of like the worst decisions that's happened in my lifetime. Right?
Yeah.
Like, easily. By my country. Like, it's pretty, a pretty horrible thing. So I don't know. I'm not an expert on the game. I'm not particularly well read up on it, but from what I see, it glorifies the US very heavily in it, and that is just something that just is just factually incorrect as far as I'm concerned, and also just not a way to do that sort of thing. Like, you just shouldn't be profiting off something like that, really. Not in my books.
Again, I would agree and just stick to my point of I don't think there was any need for it to not be to come off being shelved. I think it should have just stayed where it was, and there was no need to keep developing it. It's just there's no need for it in my opinion. It's not, from what I've seen in the gameplay. There's nothing special gameplay wise. It's just your generic shooter. Maybe one or two features here that you don't see in games often, but it's just not needed. And like that kind of goes on to what I was going to say about Call of Duty. That game's not needed. With what they're doing supposedly with the new one being World War Two. We've got plenty of World War Two games now. They've tried it, they failed. Battlefield tried it, they failed. I don't see why they're doing it. They did really well with Modern Warfare, having their modern aesthetic, but had their own story to it, and that really worked. I much prefer them doing that than going off real events. So some of the missions in that were based off real events. They're not, direct copies. I just don't see the point of. Yeah, I just don't see the point of it, to be honest.
I mean, it's
one of those games that it was controversial when it started. It still is, and and
I think
wise, it's just not good.
it's the lens of covering these events, right? There's plenty of stuff that happened in the Iraq War that should be talked about everywhere, like really vocally talked about. The US did some horrific things. Some of the footage of American soldiers murdering random innocents for fun that came out and still comes out to this day. Like that, there are some really horrible things that occur in all wars, but that is a very recent one that is in our lifetimes and is very much ongoing. All the results of which are very much ongoing. I feel like covering it in a video game that is meant to be for fun, that's
Yeah.
not the right lens. Like that's not correct. If you did a like video game movie about it that was very retrospective and looked at these events and showed off some, almost like a documentary would, right? Looked at, here's this thing that the US did. This was bad. And like there's ways you could go about it, but like doing it as a game to play for fun, it just doesn't work in my head.
Yeah.
That's just not a lens that makes sense. It just seems like a bad decision that is frankly just really insensitive.
No, I would 100% agree. It again, it should have been shelved from the start. It should have just stayed where it was. That was being shelved. So, yeah, it's a silly situation. It's become a big part of gaming news at the moment as it keeps getting updated and released at some point. There's no confirmed date, but it's released at some point. So, yeah. But on a brighter note,
to see, I think.
yeah, it is definitely something different, but I think they're looking at it from the wrong perspective. As Alfie said, it should be more of a documentary look on what was not, because what I've seen as well reading into this article is it glorifies the US, which no.
Well, I mean, there's a petition here, about just stopping it, right? Just not making the game, and this petition seems to frame the gameplay trailer as one of the main elements of gameplay being squad tactics, raiding homes and properties, and clearing the enemies, quote unquote. And this seems to suggest that the way it's phrased is basically that the intended gameplay is effectively to go in and just murder the locals, the innocent people that are just there, regardless of whether you actually have evidence. Which, whether you're deciding as a gameplay feature or not, like that's just a game where a bunch of white people in high-tech military equipment go and murder a bunch of brown people, and that's not acceptable. Like that just isn't acceptable in any way.
No, yeah.
Like it's not a game. That's just like if that is what the gameplay is, I mean that's just a racist fantasy at that point. Like, if you're gonna do a game like that, you've got to like I mean that's just not even gameplay. It couldn't be like that.
I would 100. Oh, sorry, carry on. I've spoken too much.
Oh my god.
I understand. Obviously, like we've got details from what the studio have said they're going to do. Perhaps like some developers have leaked stuff. But I suppose the thing is we wouldn't know, and it's a risk in itself that like we wouldn't know what it would be until it properly came out or gameplay leaked a bit. So it would, like say, it would be a risk of, do we want to like give this thing a chance and maybe it's not quite so unethical? Or
apparently a gameplay demo did leak, by the way.
Ooh, okay.
Leak has been
on the 18th anniversary of the Iraq War.
It's officially released.
Yeah, okay. Well,
the gameplay. Sorry, the gameplay was officially released. I can send you footage.
Well, no, as in like a playable demo.
Oh, okay.
This petition suggests.
Oh, okay. Like I've not heard of this like before today, so this is all very.
I'll send you a link in chat. Just it's a mix of gameplay and then like review. Interview, with developers and military personnel. Again, the gameplay just
with a timestamp.
The gameplay just looks. I didn't even mean to. The gameplay just looks underwhelming, in my opinion. Again, I can understand it's from a small team, so it's not a AAA game, but it's just. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's needed. We got Squad if you want a realistic shooter. There's Armor. There's plenty of games out there if you want that. Telling a weird, like a controversial story this way, I feel like it's just not the way of going it.
Playing a game in the setting of a war is just not really like it doesn't really work very well, right? Like you can have cutscenes that discuss story points of things that occurred in a war, right? In like a documentary sense. You can have games using participants, but when you're playing like as one side, like doing the thing that is just like presented in a way that like these were the good guys in the war. That's players like that's just not how that works. Like that just isn't how that works.
Mm.
And like it's
It's
pretty
not, and it's-
widely accepted that the US and UK were not the good guys in the Iraq War.
No, yeah.
Or, well, not as again. There's not good guys and bad guys in the first place, but they were not good guys. Not because the good guys and the bad guys isn't even how that works. But
No.
you know, we certainly
Yeah.
weren't good guys. That's for sure.
So I saw. No mind. Yeah, I don't know. I remember it getting shelved ages ago. I don't know why it got back up. If it was a multiplayer game, fine, okay? Because again, I don't mind if it's just a multiplayer game where people can just have mindless fun in a sandbox with like Squad, like Battlefield, like Call of Duty. But if they're trying to push an agenda, if they're trying to push a view, again, and such, we don't know at the moment. There's no confirmed actual games someone can play at the moment. We haven't seen actual gameplay from a journalist point of
supposedly
view.
there is, but the demo excerpt that I'm reading here seems to differ quite a bit from the gameplay preview video you sent.
Okay.
So it possibly has changed a lot since then, but I don't know.
Yeah, like again, that gameplay looks quite out of date anyway, to be completely honest. Again,
It'd be I certainly think it would be.
It'll be interesting.
Though, on like one hand, to see like gameplay, because they've said, from what I can see, at some point, I think it was recently, but I can't find an exact date, that it's meant to be aimed around like almost like the people on the ground, like their story, and I do find it interesting to find out like one person's perspective, so that can be very skewed. But I do find it interesting to learn of like specific stories and occasions that took place. So this could be, and I really think it depends
but
on what the final product's like full portrayal of different people would be. From what I've heard, pardon me, there possibly is some, presumably from the soldiers, should we say, how do I put, racially risky things from what I've read, which is, could be a very bad thing depending on how that's portrayed, how that comes across. But...
yeah, I mean, for example, I'm trying not to bring up specific events.
Yes, it's
because I don't want to like make people depressed on the podcast, but
No,
I'm going to say a very quick one example thing. Covering from some person's perspective, right? Like you say, that can be very skewed or whatever, but there can be an interest in covering a specific event that happened in real life from someone's perspective.
Yeah.
But as a game that you're playing for fun, when you're talking about, say, the Baghdad airstrike, where there's the video of US helicopter pilots just shooting people down and literally out loud saying they're doing it for fun. Like, if you're playing that from the perspective of the US, like, even if it was done with like a cinematic shot, or like a cutscene, sorry, not cinematic was the word, a cutscene, it was like very discussing, very unfavorable of the US, to then put you in the shoes of the US and have you do that action. Like, no matter how you do that, if you're playing it as a game, that just isn't acceptable.
Yeah.
I'd agree with you. Like doing, like, especially like certain specifics like that. I kind of get what you say, like about playing games for fun. I'm trying to think of how to word it, because this is all obviously quite a delicate, understandably and deservedly so, a delicate subject. So trying to word this correctly.
While you were thinking about that, I just want to briefly say, I don't think there's going to be people playing this game going, "Oh, the US did the right thing here, pro-military sort of thing."
Yeah, I'd certainly hope no one goes into it.
I mean,
playing it for enjoyment is how I'd word it.
I guess it depends on how they
I guess
advertise
it
it.
also depends
Okay,
of
but-
what you hear about it beforehand. Because if I, for example, went in to play Spec Ops: The Line beforehand, expecting an average shooter, like just looking to run around and mindlessly shoot things, I would be surprised. Obviously, without going into too much there as well, because that's still.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing: like, take that specific event. How would
Yes.
like the game just wouldn't be able to cover that then in any way in your understanding? Because I don't understand how you would go into that situation and then give control over to the player and not argue that it's part of an enjoyment concept. Then.
Yeah, for real. Like
That you just would not be able to include that. I don't think you'd be able to include 90% of the stuff. I mean, like, do you particularly fancy doing chemical attacks on people? Probably not. Like,
no, I'm like so the things like obviously in more. Let's go for like the Call of Duty example. For example, in No Russian, the famous airport scene, you can go through the entire level without shooting anyone. The thing is, in that case, is it's not modeled after a specific scenario,
but yeah, that's
but
not
which
real.
obviously you take
that I
away
know
from
of.
if you say, "Oh yeah, you don't have to do this thing that actually happened."
But
you
also-
take away from it massively.
Context for that is they specifically warn the player there's a mission like this come along. You can skip it if you want. It won't affect the story in any
Okay, I
way.
didn't know. Did they do that with release? To be fair, I
Yeah,
don't know. I've heard
pretty
about
sure
the
they did that
mission.
with release. I'm pretty sure
In
it's when you
all of
start the campaign.
Okay, in all of the gameplay I've seen, I don't remember that, but I've not seen. I've not played it myself, and I've not seen gameplay in years, so I could very easily be or not remembering that, as the case would be.
Yeah, I think it's when you start the campaign. It says there's
Oh, okay.
stuff that you may find disturbing. You're more than
Yeah.
welcome to skip it. It won't affect the
Skip it,
story in much of
Yeah,
a
it'd be
manner.
interesting for that, wouldn't it? In this game, you'd just be skipping pretty much to the credits by
Yeah.
the sounds of things.
But
Yeah.
like I thought, when you mentioned Call of Duty, when you were talking about chemical weapons, I thought you were going to talk about the new Modern Warfare because there was huge controversy when they
I mean, there was controversy around that. Yeah.
yeah when
Oh,
they
yeah,
showed that
that's
they were
true.
going to add white phosphorus as a kill streak in multiplayer. People got really pissed off by that because
Mm.
chemical
I mean-
weapons in any matter is just a bad thing.
Yeah, like I don't play these sort of games historically or in the future, I would imagine. But I do know the specific airport scene. I've seen
Yeah.
gameplay of it a few times, and you know, from my understanding, like it's a completely constructed for the story.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
it's not even story relevant necessarily, but it's just in the game. It is not based on real life events.
I think
So-
it is story relevant only
It can't.
because
Okay,
of
there's one bit at the
ending
end.
of it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's what I'm like the element of what they're doing is still story relevant. Like the reason that it's happening is what I
Yeah, but like it's all a fake story, right? It's not based
Oh,
on real life
absolutely,
events.
yeah,
You know, yeah. So
It's not relevant for you to participate.
choosing
to, be
to
fair.
gun down civilians in that situation is
Hmm.
not choosing to put yourself in the perspective of like any real life event. It's abstracted from real life, right?
Yeah.
Doing something like in this game based on an actual event that happened in the Iraq War is doing
Yes.
stuff that led to actual people dying in an illegal war.
Mm.
Like that's
Yeah, it's definitely a very
really
different.
contextually different, and I think that
Yes.
needs to be stressed, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not just it's not necessarily that like the thing you are doing is bad, right? Killing someone in CS:GO, like holy shit, you just shot someone in the head, like. But the point is, it's the context around it of it
Mm.
actually happened. Like these things happened. Lots of really horrific things happened.
I'm trying to
and-
think.
To sort of glorify them in a video game is just it's just not acceptable to
I'm
me.
trying to think of a war game that's based off a real event. To be
I was
completely
about.
honest.
I'm trying to think of.
Well, yeah, I don't
like
think many do it because
quite
it
a
would be
few
stupid.
games of real events. Like
Because I know, like, Call of Duty is a good example because they base some missions off things that happened, but they don't like a good example which was famously spoken about in the new Modern Warfare was the London attacks. That was based off what happened in Paris around the same year. It wasn't an identical mission. Sorry, it wasn't an identical situation, but it was based off the idea that people coming into a city and terrorizing civilians. It was two different, like they don't parallel each other in any way, shape, or form. One used chemical weapons, one just stabbed people, I guess. I can't remember. No, it was a lot worse than that one. Because yeah, but like that based a mission off something that happened that year. It wasn't parallel, but it was close enough that people
I mean,
realized it was similar enough.
Yeah, I also think it's important to stress the difference between basing something on a real life
Yes.
event such as the Blitz, having a video game about the Blitz and playing through the Blitz is a bit different to basing on a very tightly scoped specific war crime that occurred, right?
Yeah.
Or I mean, even just in general, like again, like the war, like World War One or World War Two, like they were very complex political events. Don't get me wrong, but in general, it was tension between a lot of countries for specific reasons for all of them that led into a sort of eruption of an event, right? Whereas the Iraq War was kind of just decided to happen. Like the US just decided they wanted to do it, and the UK went, yeah, we can help, and it kind of happened. Like there were reasons the US wanted to do it. Don't get me wrong, but there wasn't a specific sort of tension building with like a direct necessary oppressor in the same way that they're like, you know, there's the excuses and we were fighting X, and you can get into like literal millions of excuses that the US government didn't use that individuals will use to defend the war. But in general, in my opinion, the Iraq war was a decision made that was not at all necessary in the ways that you could argue the other wars have been. Well, not necessarily necessary, but inevitable, right? Like, I think a lot of people could have argued that World War II was kind of inevitable at some point, because, you know, if Nazi Germany was going to try and invade the UK and take over, like, Britain probably wasn't going to have that without any resistance, at which point you're technically at war, right? Which is basically, frankly, what happened. So, you know, like, it's a difference between, like, when a country just chooses to go to war for its own personal gain that leads to a lot of horrific war crimes and human rights atrocities, that is then covered up in a mass media campaign, that is then glorified in a lot of media separate to this video game. Like, to then release this video game further glorifying it, like, it's just not right in my books.
So I was just looking at games that are based off real life events or real life stories. One of them I wasn't aware of, because I played this a lot as a kid, was Brother in Arms Road to the Hill 30. Wasn't aware that was based off a real event.
I suppose the other
real
thing
story.
is based off a real event. It's awkward to like differentiate between based off of a real event and
Yeah.
depicting a real event. It's a slight but needed context.
Like I think a good example of that context is wasn't aware of this. I wish I was actually, because it's interesting. Ella Noir is actually based off solving the a murder case that hasn't been solved for 70 years. A real life murder case that hasn't been solved for 70 years. I wasn't aware of that, but that's you know, interesting. However, there's a game on here which I'm a little bit jarred to see, to be completely honest. The game is called JFK Reloaded, and it is quite literally just you assassinating JFK. Now,
I've not heard of this before.
I've heard a lot about this game. This is one of those games again. I feel like isn't played for enjoyment. Because if you find enjoyment playing this, I feel like that's a little worrying, because it is quite literally not a one-to-one, but like a close simulation recreation of what happened.
Yeah, I would. My counterpoint there would be, how do you play that game and not be playing it for enjoyment? If that game put you in the perspective of having to press M1 to shoot, you know, I don't know if the game gives you liberty on what weapons, or if it's that, you know, accurate to the event, like whatever, right? But if it does that, like, why would you do that? You can just watch a film about it or watch a documentary. If you're putting yourself in the shoes of playing a video game, to do that, you are doing it for enjoyment.
I don't know. I don't know. It's just one of those weird games. I just feel like I suppose it's made more to give you an idea of what happened that day, and to explore what could have been and all that. Like, because it gives you can shoot at any moment in the entire parade, and obviously different things happen. What I've seen, it gives you that idea. And to be honest, the whole JFK being assassinated has got so many different conspiracies and all that, like the bullet deflecting, and oh god, let's not even get into conspiracies, but
yeah,
like, I guess it was it's one of those weird ones. I remember seeing it ages ago, and it just left my mind because I completely forgot it existed.
Yeah,
but like that's not a game based off a story. That is a game
I think it's also
that is a story. Like it's from real
important
life.
to note that this game specifically is being discussed and released at a time of rising tensions, at a time of rising anti-black, anti-brown racism. There's a lot of problems that are getting worse. Rising fascism, especially in the US, especially in the UK, generally though in the world. There is very much a growing issue that this game is directly related to, right? Like there's a growing sense of pro-military behavior, a growing sense of that sort of stuff, and I feel like it really ties into that. That it is not like whether you even agree with the game or not. I just the game just seems like unsuitable as far as I'm concerned. But it's also releasing at a time where like this sort of racism is like really being vocalized and really being unashamedly demonstrated by some pretty awful people across the internet, physical events. And if you're, looking at this from that sort of perspective, I think it really can be like, yeah, that's just not something you want to do, right? Like one of these articles I see is suggesting that that is scientifically supposedly discrediting the concept that this game could cause could cause players to become more racist, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like some people were arguing that people would pick up this game and suddenly be horrifically racist because of playing the game. And it says that, like, psychological studies suggest that that's not going to happen, that what people do in video games doesn't lead to them doing it in real life, which I agree with. From the knowledge that I know, that doesn't make sense, right? Like people that play a bunch of Call of Duty don't just go out and shoot guns at real people. That doesn't happen very often.
People who play GTA don't run people over.
People that do shootings also often play games like this. People that are already racist are probably going to find enjoyment in a game where they are given the ability to go and abuse and to shoot and to gun down a specific group of people. And that is where I would draw, separate to the numerous other problems with the game, right? Like, it's probably not going to convert a swath of America to suddenly be racist, although that's pretty much already done, I guess. Like, it's that there are some pretty bad people, pretty detestable people out there that already exist that are going to find specific enjoyment in the events that this game could cover, separate to its other issues that just further add to the, at this point, growing list of problems that I think would be, really worth considering about, like, if you're making any piece of media, I think you have to really talk to yourself and discuss with yourself, what are the ethics of me releasing this, right? Like is it gonna do good? And this game, I just don't see how it would do good. It doesn't teach, from what I can see of the content, it doesn't teach people anything. It doesn't help the situation in any way. It actively worsens it for specific people and cases. And just in general, like it doesn't, like on the scale of if it's doing good or doing bad, I think this is pretty solidly towards doing bad.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Like reading further into it, I'm in like the YouTube comments now of the gameplay reveal you sent to me. Interesting. So it seems to be less based off of like specific events, but again based closely around them, because there are people here mentioning how it's I don't know exactly like if the game's going to be mission driven or what, but saying that the houses you go to and their placement, things like that, are going to be procedurally generated, which I suppose brings it a bit away from the what specifically happened, but then on the other hand, that also, I guess, takes away from the potential educational.
Yeah. So why?
It's a weird game.
Why would you do that in a single player game, right?
The reason they're doing the procedural levels, I don't know if you actually watched the video. But the developer,
but I'm trying not to.
Yeah, don't worry. The developer was talking about, one of the developers was saying that the reason it's procedural is because one of the aspects of the new generation of war, when you enter these buildings, is you never know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
So if it's procedural, you never do a level the same time, because you know if you had the same level, you can just learn, okay, there's an enemy behind that corner. They want to try and give you that surprise, but again, I guess we just have to wait and see what comes out, how it's done, how it's portrayed, if it's story driven, if it's based off real life events.
Yeah, I don't know how far it got last time in development before it was cancelled, but from what I'm seeing here, I reckon this one is going to go through to release.
I'm going to be completely honest.
It would be my expectation, rather, is that it's far enough in that it's now going to go through to release, unlike last time.
Completely honest, I didn't expect this to be the main topic of the podcast. I just thought I'd briefly mention it and get people's opinions. But no, it's been in almost half an hour of just discussing Iraq War and the need or the lack thereof of making games based off these sort of events.
Interesting comments from who's this person? Sorry, let me try and get their official job title. Head of the original studio behind the game and its current publisher. The guy's called Peter Tante.
Yes.
There's a quote here that says, "Very few people are curious what it's like to be an Iraqi civilian. Nobody's going to play that game, but people are curious what it's like to be in combat." Which is in response to this sort of interview perspective here of like, they previously mentioned, well, I can literally directly quote him, just because the Iraq war was controversial doesn't mean that it isn't filled with stories of sacrifice. And then the prompt was, but whose sacrifices are we talking about here? Because, there are people that sacrificed themselves for the US cause, but there are plenty of other innocents that died, people that sacrificed on all sides, that are exploited in the system. That's how wars work. And it's, like his response to that is, well, no one's interested in being an Iraqi civilian. And it's like,
that just sounds like a dick.
That's just being an asshole. Like, that's just being a bad person. Like, I'm pretty sure no one's interested in being an Iraqi civilian, because being an Iraqi civilian in that situation as a video game would be incredibly, incredibly, like, distressing on a person, right? Like, you were in a war zone. There are multiple of your friends and families being killed. Some being killed for absolutely no reason. Like, so, no, that's not something you want to do.
I agree with you. I think if you got like 100 people, or let's fucking small sample, I could have had any number, but 100 people apparently, and asked a load of them, would you rather, if you were to play this sort of game, would you rather play as a US soldier or an Iraqi civilian? I imagine the main answer would be like the soldier, just because from a gameplay perspective, that's most what people are familiar with.
I was about to oh, sorry, Ken.
Yeah, I mean, in that situation, I would personally say, like it depends, because, like, again, if you phrase it, who would you rather play as, right? Like, that's talking about, like, gameplay systems, gameplay loops, mechanics, abilities. And obviously, there's a lot more, not just what people are used to, but potential in someone that has equipment from modern military gear, right? Like, there's theoretically more potential there than just a random civilian in their home. But at the same time, if you were to ask me that question phrased as, who do you think would be a more interesting perspective, not even from a gameplay sense, but who would tell the better story? Absolutely an Iraqi civilian. Without a single shred of doubt.
I think we're listening...
It would be so person to person. Sorry, now I keep interrupting you.
Yeah, don't I?
Obviously, because it's a very complex, like, conversation. That is really a good point, to be fair.
I think what he meant, obviously, when you're in an interview, you will say stuff, and then afterwards you'll realise, or even not after, but, like, I think what he meant is like, obviously, he sounds like a dick, and for all I know, he could be. I've never met the man, never watched an interview. So for all I know, he could be a dick. But I think what he means, but it's still just, it's just not what you should be saying in any sense is, why would someone want to play as a civilian in a shooter? Because it's just not fun. It's not gameplay. But when you base in a game off real life events or something as controversial as the Iraq War, and you're not going to go into what made it such a bad war, bad time, then you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't make a game based off that and say, oh, well, the civilians were. Why would you want to play as a civilian in this time? Because I can understand that from a gameplay point, nobody wants to, because it just wouldn't be an interesting game for what he wants to make it. I completely agree with you. It would come up with some amazing stories. You know that or it would be a better story because you understand what really happened in a true sense in that situation.
To give a bit further context, because it ties into what you're saying very well, actually. That the continuation of that paragraph, I will paraphrase. He continues to make a point that the reason people play games is for the gameplay, and that they want to deliver a realistic combat experience, and that is the experience that they are aiming to deliver. And like, you can absolutely say, like, yeah, having like a realistic combat experience with really, fleshed out and very good feeling weaponry and equipment is something that a game can strive to do, and some games do it better than others. But why does that need to be a single player FPS based on a real life war? That could just be Squad, as an example of a game that has somewhat realistic features, right? Like, there are shooters that do that fine, and they say, hey, we want to have this really specific thing done really well, and they do that, right? Like that's what games do, right? Like, I don't personally play War Thunder. I'm sure you guys can comment endlessly about how unbalanced X Plate is, or X Tank, or all of this shit, right? But from what I can see of the content that I've watched of War Thunder does a generally, like, not necessarily the best in the market, but a generally good job of simulating tank warfare, right? It's not simulating a real event where X military, killed civilians with X set of tanks. It's just, here's some tanks from these countries. We've simulated the penetration and different armor types on the tanks and different shell types. And it's trying to do that one thing well. And that's a good example of, like, they're not doing a thing based on a real life event that in that sense, like, you're trying to do a thing, and you're taking your game, abstracting it from real life, and just creating a gameplay scenario to do your gameplay well.
Yeah. No, it's one of those ones where I think he has an aim, but he just didn't describe it well. Sorry, my doorbell's going. Yeah, he has an aim. I think he was just trying to say a point that he didn't think too much about on the negative side of what's going on. I potentially listening to this and hearing what he's saying in these interviews is I don't think he sees the other side of what other people are seeing, the negative side of the negative connotations. Which, to be completely honest, I can understand. If you're making a game and you have a vision, you're going to be concentrated on your vision.
I mean, I would personally say I'd be worried if you couldn't see the negative connotations of the Iraq War.
But you see that happen a lot, unfortunately.
There are serious issues with that, in my opinion. I mean, like, that is an opinion, obviously. I'm not trying to claim that that's how it is, but...
It is, yeah. I guess, as Phelan said, we'll have to wait and see what actually comes out with this game, and if it is as controversial as it's been told. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see, won't you?
Yeah.
And if it needs to, it can be cancelled.
I want to state from like the public record, so to speak, that my personal take is the game shouldn't come out.
Yeah.
But that's my take.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what happens if it gets cancelled. It gets cancelled.
It's certainly interesting because, like, just to sort of, without going into, like, any real detail, or without needing to. Obviously, games like SWAT 4 aren't based on real scenarios, but I like the sort of tactical elemental play to that. I wonder if you could almost, like, detach. Well, you could detach story from this. I'm wondering how possible it will be for players to detach the story from it and just play it as a military tactical shooter.
And I think I like that.
It's pretty hard to do that in a game that is based on, like, a real life event.
Maybe if they allow modding potentially, but then that's an extra step.
No, like, again, I 100% agree, right? Like my example with War Thunder, I think taking you want to do X thing well. Let's say, for example, it's snipers, right? There are numerous franchises and games that have existed that try specifically to not even bother with all weaponry and just say, no, we want really nice sniping.
No, there isn't.
And they do that, and some people say these are terrible. Every single sniper game that has ever been made of any variety has terrible sniping and it sucks. And some people have, like, the ones they like, but that's the point, right? Like, they're taking a gameplay vision that they have, and they're deploying it in a way that's abstracted from real life events where people can go into it and just enjoy that gameplay. And this isn't that. Like, this is based on a real life illegal war, basically.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's just weird. I don't know. If talking about Phelan said about the gameplay aspect, from what I've seen in the trailer, it just doesn't look that good in my opinion. I know this is early and it's obviously still got a lot of development to do, and it might not just be one game, but it just doesn't look like it's going to be. It looks like as mentioned, it's not something that's been done before. We'll have to wait and see again, I guess. So. Good luck on the team, I guess, if they manage to do something right with it. Who knows? Yeah. But that was definitely a conversation I didn't expect to have about that game. Yeah, no, that was certainly something. I was going to actually mention about the website I sent to you, Phelan, and I wanted your opinion on it.
Yeah, I'm looking into that now as you say. So what's the
So for context, it's a website that just plays Halo 1 main menu music or any of the Halos.
Okay, so here's what I'd say. Absolutely cool, appreciate it. But also I would, and I have done in the past, when I want to do that, I just go to YouTube and put on that music. Like, don't get me wrong, the loading screens themselves, or the main menus themselves are sometimes slightly dynamic, and it can be cool to watch them. But most of the time, they don't add enough for me to be like, I need them and the music.
Have you seen that really rare Easter egg on Halo 4? The main new one?
Don't know.
Where you have to, on a certain day, I want to say it's July the 8th, it's one of the developer's wife's birthday. If you do a button combination, it unlocks a secret menu screen for you.
Oh, okay, sounds interesting.
Which, yeah, I just love Easter eggs like that, honestly. Just ones that...
Was that Halo 5, sorry?
Halo 4, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Because it wasn't found until like a year in, which, most of these Easter eggs aren't. Battlefield's a great example of this. Easter eggs not being found.
One I've heard of.
But yeah, no, there's yeah, no, I've just been thrown off because we've just been speaking about that. Any latest news? Because we spoke about that for way too long. Let's check if there's any new news that I can find. Nope, just about the canals, the Suez Canal cargo ship being stuck.
This one's in a loop.
Which is absolutely beautiful.
Someone has made a website where you can place the Ever Given anywhere in the world. So it's just like Google Maps that you could zoom and then like adjust the ship so you can just wedge it in any water where you want.
Okay, yeah.
It's quite fun.
I've just seen an article.
I think it might be Halo 3, sorry, just updating from
what
I have managed to find. But
I do apologise,
yeah. Content is still the same.
So apparently Resident Evil Village will arrive on the Google Stadia. And to encourage you to buy this version, Google will throw in a free Stadia Premiere kit to anyone that pre-orders Resident Evil Village on the Stadia.
Right. And
so if you buy
kit come with?
The promotion is also available for the standard and deluxe editions. So I'm just trying to figure out because it doesn't give me an easy answer.
Oh, okay, right. To be fair, I think they did a promotion pretty much right after it came out where you could get it for ridiculously cheap. I can't remember exactly.
So the Premiere Edition you get... Thanks for giving me to Best Buy, that's great. And I can't even find it on Best Buy, oh my god.
Oh.
Apparently they did a similar one with Cyberpunk.
Oh, okay, I remember them doing similar things in the past.
Oh, here we go. You get a Stadia controller, a Chromecast Ultra, and 1 month trial subscription for Stadia.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair though, with the way Stadia is going, does that actually have any value?
No.
No, it's cloud gaming's such an odd one. To be fair, just like in general. I can see the use of it. I personally don't really have a need for it because I'm fairly sedentary and don't move around too much. And my computer's obviously good enough to keep up with things.
That's questionable.
Is it?
I'm joking.
Yeah, I don't personally have much interest in cloud gaming. Just conceptually, I don't really
Okay.
feel personally interested in playing games
I'd
other
say
than at my PC. Like, I don't play stuff on my phone, you know?
I'd say the concept interests me because to me it's the same way I'm intrigued by gaming on a handheld. It's not what I'd consider or want my primary way of gaming to be, but I'd be interested in using it during the times where it would be like benefiting me.
Yeah. I again, but like as someone that owns a Switch, I don't.
Yeah.
There's no game on my
That's true.
PC that I would want to play on a handheld that I wouldn't just get on my Switch. Like if I want to play handheld games, I'll buy games made for handheld on a handheld console, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where I stand. Like I don't have an interest in like a console like a PS5 or Xbox One X, Series X edition, 6th edition, Xbox 360 One S Plus, because I just like I can play all those games on my PC, right? Like there's a few exclusives that come out for the PlayStation, especially in the past, right, that I won't get to play on PC. But I can live without those. I can just watch a YouTube Let's Play, right? Quite frankly, right? Like, you know, like I whatever, I can cope with that. But like 99% of the games, I have no reason to get a standard home console because it's just not useful to me. A handheld like the Switch gives me some games that don't exist on PC, and some games that do exist on PC, but also just lend themselves to a handheld particularly well. And like, you know, I don't see why I'd need to play the PC games anywhere other than my PC, really. And if I particularly did say I was on a laptop, maybe I was on holiday, and I really, for some absurd reason, had that much of a need to play my cool epic video game, like I could just stream it from my PC, and like
You could,
like
I suppose.
that's
The other
fine.
thing would be, I don't. It's not aimed to be felt like at people like we've all got capable PCs here. It would be interesting. I'm trying to think if I know anyone like as closely as I know. Like, also, I know guys who who are still running Intel HD graphics, but it'd be interesting. I'm trying to think if I know anyone closely, like I know you guys, who has a really low spec system. I need to branch my friends out into low spec systems. That's
T.
what yeah, okay. So yeah, maybe it would be interesting to see like what he's because I know he's focused around War Thunder at the minute and F1, I believe.
Yep.
But it would, cause at the end of the day, if my PC wasn't great, and I was like, hey, I for whatever reason want to play Cyberpunk, or I don't know if Cyberpunk's available, or one of the games that is available but is generally higher end, it could be useful.
I mean, yeah, and don't get me wrong, I understand why people want to be able to play these games if they're on a system that can. But I would just fully advise that it is a better use of your money to save up for a PC. You can get into a budget PC. Like, okay, I'm going to preface
monthly subscriptions suck. I will say that now. I absolutely hate subscriptions.
I'll preface this with silicon shortage and issues around the semiconductor industry in general aside. You can get a pretty capable gaming PC for a very small amount these days.
Yeah.
Some of
Stadia
AMD's offerings.
Pro is $9.99 a month. So that's just over a year of saving, and you could like just saving off just from like not getting Stadia, not including other savings that you'd obviously be doing at the same time.
I mean exactly right. Like if I feel like if you're at the point where you're willing to spend £10 a month on a subscription, I would hope that you have at least some level of other financial sort of stability, right? And if you do, like, I think you'd rather just save that 10 months, whatever else other income you can put aside, £10 a month, and whatever other income you can put aside, and buy a PC. But, like, I absolutely do not recommend entering the PC market with a 3090 and a 10700 billion X edition plus K, because I fucked the name of that CPU up. Like, you know, like I think you should enter at the low end, but like, you know, again, shortage of components aside that is currently plaguing Earth. Yeah, like shop around, try and find good components. I think it is, in my opinion, better value to get into the market of owning a PC, especially noting that PC gaming and gaming PCs and PC equipment is an investment. Like, I can sell my PC.
Yes,
All of us can
absolutely.
sell our components secondhand, and there is a huge, especially right now,
Yep.
huge secondhand market for PC components. If you are one of the people listening to this and you are looking to buy a PC and think, actually, yeah, I'm convinced I'm not going to get a Stadia subscription. I'm going to save up for a PC. Look at secondhand components.
Buy
You can
mine.
get some
Yeah,
pretty
for
new
real.
stuff for really pretty reasonable if you shop around a bit. Like, it's very reasonable too. I mean, it's a bit of a mess right now again. There's a shortage and that side, but in general, I'm talking over the history of components being sellable online.
I would say do that.
It's better value.
I would say do that in general when it comes to buying anything tech related, mice, keyboard, audio setups, monitors. You know, you can make some really good savings looking on Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Gumtree, other second-hand websites or second-hand sellers.
Having a look now,
Yeah,
I'm just
it's a
looking
great option.
around, seeing what the cheapest cloud gaming, and even then, it won't be like a superb one, but I want to see what the cheapest one I can find is.
I have some I have some streaming game news though.
Yeah, I was just also going to say, technically not necessarily TOS compliant, depending on the service. But even if you don't buy physical games, right? like if you're playing for a subscription service, you're paying for a subscription service. Sorry, for a cloud gaming service, you don't own those games. You're not going to own those games, which kind of sucks. If you're buying games, even digitally, you can technically resell your account, and I do not necessarily suggest you do that because you could end up with someone very angry at you if the account got banned down the line or whatever. But you technically can do it, right? Like, for example, you have a Steam account, you purchase things on a Steam account, that value doesn't go to nowhere, that value increases the value of your Steam account, and you can sell your Steam account if you chose to do so. I personally don't think you actually ever really have a reason to. Like, unless you're in an industry of selling Steam accounts, at which point I do think that is morally quite wrong, because it's just scalping digital copies of games at that point.
Yeah.
But if you own a Steam account, I actually don't think there is really a situation where you'd want to sell it. Like, you just keep adding stuff to your Steam account and keep getting cool new stuff to play. But what I'm trying to argue is that, like, buying stuff digitally for PC is not a complete loss of the money, right? There is still value that you possess, that you own from doing that. As it is now, like, there are very much systems going forward that are trying to push the concept of you not actually owning the games you purchase, and it gets iffy in that regard. But yeah, in general, I think PCs are good investments, and people should always consider that when buying.
And talking about streaming, and wanting to buy PCs, apparently Steam can now stream your game at 8K. If you really want to.
You'd have to have some bandwidth. That would be.
I know. But no, it's news I just saw, which I haven't actually seen anything about this, but it kind of does excite me. Because I've been playing a lot of EFT this year, and I plan on getting more into it and streaming some more. Stalker 2 gameplays. Oh, sorry, some of Stalker 2 is being revealed, like images of the models and all that, and it's looking phenomenal.
Oh, okay, I didn't know they were working on that.
Yeah, I'll send you a. Here you go. Here's an article. One of the videos, but some of the models they're working on just look absolutely phenomenal. I'm amazed so myself. It's amazing with what they're doing. I don't know how big the team is. I haven't actually looked into anything. As mentioned, I've only just learnt about this, but yeah, I'm interested to see
build from 2012, and man, does it not look anything like it does today.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Oof.
So
I mean, to be fair,
good to see that.
As someone that doesn't know much about this game, looking at the video you sent, these all appear to be X-program renders, so I doubt they're going to appear in this fidelity in the game, because models never do.
Yeah, I would unfortunately absolutely argue that yes, they look good, but that's also when you get the actual model file, that's what they would look like in a fair amount of other games.
Yeah, in the games that have the it's still from an artwork perspective. The models that are created for some games, I mean, the maps that are created for some games, the detail that in general is involved in game dev is insane. Like, it is. Like on one hand, I think it could be very easy to think that someone creating a prop in 3D for, like, the background of a movie would be a higher quality model or higher fidelity model than a video game? Often not, because it's unshot for like 4 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's out of focus, and there's a bokeh or whatever, right? Like, it. Video games really have some insane detail put into
Oh,
the modeling that doesn't ever really get shown in the game.
I would say a good way of saying it to compare that is in movies, they make it for the shot. So if it's in,
Yeah.
as you said, if it's in bokeh, they're not going to put a 6K texture on it. But if it's a close up, then yeah. While in video games, it could be 50 meters away, it could be across the map, it could be in your hands. They have to have different levels of detail. That's what LOD is in games, and I think people who play games are well aware of that. But they still, they still have to put they are well modeled and well created, in a lot of games. So, and especially these days, like the better graphics we get, the better technology we get, the more fidelity that they have to add and make sure these models are, especially in some of the top tier games that are being made these days. Yeah, it's amazing what they can do. So, yeah, and
Yeah.
actually talking about that, one of the models I saw recently, some of the models I saw recently, character models, was again, we were watching in this event, Back for Blood. The zombies actually look. I really like the art style in that game. It's got that
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the game.
semi-cartoony-esque look, like sort of like not high fidelity textures. It's just like they are, high resolution textures, but they don't have that ultra realistic look. They've got that sort of cartoony, sort of like cel shaded sort of look, but it looks really well in a 2021 like a lighting engine. Like it just looks really good. I'm actually excited for that game. I wasn't too interested in it. I was like, oh, there you go, there's a Left 4 Dead clone. But the more I've seen of it, the more I've heard of it, it's a game I'm actually looking forward to play with people, It's been a while since I played Left 4 Dead or a Left 4 Dead-esque game, and one coming out that looks that good and the gameplay looks quite decent, to be completely honest. I'm interested to play that with some people. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be happy for that when that comes out.
Yeah, definitely. The alpha's coming out in next month, or have they delayed it to August? I can't remember. Let me find out. Well, I remember that got delayed, but I didn't know if it was until April or August. So, I'll look it up. But I hope people get that, because I would love to play that with people. Brutally honest.
Yeah, me too.
They've got a competitive multiplayer. Okay, that was something I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Right. And talking about other really good games coming out in alpha, we've got Odyssey. That one's questionable between us lot, because
I mean,
the game itself isn't questionable. It's the economic side of things, I believe.
Yeah, like as a big Elite fan,
is for me at least.
Right.
Yeah.
I will simply say this: one, the season pass quote system that they named it / effectively paid expansion system, because the Horizons was called a season, and it was a season like well before like season passes were what they are now. Like it's a paid expansion system, right? You buy base game, you pay for game, and the fact that now they at least with Odyssey setting the precedent that in future when the next expansion releases, the previous ones will merge with the base game. It is a good thing. Like I personally prefer it to the other funding model of subscription-based services or free games that have horrific monetization, etc. Nevertheless, Elite has predatory monetization. I speak out against it, and I do not like it. The old system of having an online store where you just added things to your cart like every other online store in existence to purchase in-game items was fine, because you could very clearly see I am adding this skin pack for $3.99 GBP. I am adding this weapon detailing for $3.99 GBP. And it was very clear how much money you're spending. Now there's an in-game currency system, and cool that you can technically earn in-game currency in-game. It's not exclusively. I'm going to pretend that Frontier added that because they're such nice people, and not because it's a legal requirement to sell it in multiple countries in Europe or anything. Like it's bullshit. It takes you like a week to earn the shittest skins in the game of like full like playtime, not a week of time, like a week of play. Like it's absurd. Like the in-game system sucks. in my opinion, I think they should absolutely get rid of the microtransactions Elite and return it to the previous system. You can have an in-game store for all I care, just visually, very clearly display you are spending this much money in the person's currency, because there is an abstraction that is predatory to using an in-game currency and saying like, hey, look, you're using this.
Yes.
Like if you want to give people free in-game cosmetics because you're a nice company, then give them a pass. Like maybe reward certain in-game activities. Maybe hitting the max rank with the Imperial Navy gets you one free skin on the ship that you get at each tier. Maybe in fact that's even meta system, right? Like there's plenty of ways you can reward your player base from in-game with external cosmetics. Just I don't like that. Anyway, the point is, Odyssey looks to be really promising. There are numerous issues you can critique it with in the content they've showed so far. Granted, the content is all pre-alpha, and looking at the plans they have discussed for the alpha on the forums and on Twitter, the alpha is probably going to be going on for a little while before we even enter beta, let alone it releases proper. So there's that to consider. But in general, like I have a lot of issues with the game's decision on grind and stuff, because it's just personally something that, as much as I love Elite, I just don't have the energy to put in that effort, frankly, for a lot of the stuff I would like to be able to do in the game, which sucks because a lot of the content ends up inaccessible to me. But in general, Odyssey looks really cool because it's Elite Dangerous, which is probably the most fleshed out space. I'm a spaceship fly about a bit.
No Man's Sky.
Fuck off. Out there. And now they're saying, hey, you want to fly on some lightly atmosphered planets? You do that, and it's going to look pretty as shit. Like, you want to get out and walk about and do an FPS gameplay for a bit? You can do that. And that's going to be awesome. Like even if it's done mediocrely, even if they don't fix some of the issues that have been pointed out, it's still going to be cool to have one game where you can start the game and you can spend your entire time only in a spaceship as an asteroid miner, or you can spend your entire time as a pirate on foot. That is cool as shit. Right? Like, I think we can all agree. So, yeah, I know there's lots of issues I have with Elite, evidently, from my speech. But, I don't know, Odyssey's looking cool. It has a few problems, but in general, I think everyone that plays Elite or cares about it is in general excited, even if they're not necessarily going to be one of the people that picks it up.
The thing is, I have the exact same grievance as you with War Thunder, as it's extremely grindy, and the paid element of it is extremely expensive.
I mean, but War Thunder, again, I don't play War Thunder. War Thunder has to be extremely grindy, though, because it's a pay-to-win game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's grind that's added because it's necessary for the economic model that the game works under. It's free to play, but if you didn't make it grindy so that getting stuff that you can pay for was hard to do without paying for it, they wouldn't have value, so you have to create that artificial value. Elite just adds grind because it's the gameplay style they like, right? Like that's what they like, and I don't necessarily have a problem with games having grind. I have a problem when the grind isn't engaging. In my opinion, a lot of the grind in Elite Dangerous isn't engaging. It has gotten better.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. They've improved it since a while ago, but it's still there. And for someone that doesn't have the energy personally to be able to sit down and say, I'm going to do this same repetitive action for the next 8 hours to get this one engineering unlock on one of my ships, like, I don't have that energy. Some people do, and stuff. And I don't necessarily have a problem with you having to put in a lot of work. It's just that work isn't engaging. It's repetitive.
Yeah.
And it's less so now, still significantly RNG based, so you can technically, in some cases, put in hours of work to absolutely zero reward, which I have done once in the past where I needed a specific scan, which was like a 1 in 4 chance on the scan types I was doing, and I didn't get a single one, and I did 6, and I did it for 4 hours. And I think from that day, I've just not grinded in Elite, pretty much. To be fair, that probably is the turning point.
That's fair. No, it is.
In general, though, Odyssey looks cool. And also, this is going to be a controversial hot take from the there's taglines for each of us in this podcast. We've got obviously Tactical TV, the host, Delicious, the interrupted, and me, the Star Citizen hater. But I will flat say this: while I have a lot of problems with the monetization of Star Citizen, where I can shit on them a heck of a lot more than I can shit on Frontier, because Frontier did not take a bunch of people's money and continue to charge them an absurd amount of money for a game that is still not delivered on a team significantly bigger than Frontier's. Cough, cough. For a considerable amount of money more than Frontier's. Cough, cough. in general, this is competition for Star Citizen in a more direct way, which is a good thing because it forces them to actually fucking make a game and continue fixing it, which
Okay.
is good. More space games is good.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. It's one of those genres that I think it's catching back up, and doing very well at the moment. Definitely, there's been huge developments in that in all scenes: Star Citizen, No Man's Sky, Elite Dangerous. Even the smaller ones like is it Astronaut? Is that what it's called?
I mean, Astronaut's a cute game,
Yeah, well, that's a really cute game, and it does what it does what it aims to do. And they're still developing it, so.
Should also point out, I don't like No Man's Sky. I haven't liked No Man's Sky since it released. I don't like No Man's Sky today. That is because I just don't like the game. Right? I don't like the way it does its systems. I don't like the gameplay loop. I don't like any of that. Nonetheless, credit to the team on how much they have grown that game from what it was when it released.
Yeah, no, they didn't just give
up. I
up.
don't like it, but they have put a lot of work into that.
Yeah. I would say the same about Star Citizen. They just didn't give up. They kept going and going and going, and they're still
equally
going,
though, the convenient thing is that while you might have to pay a lot of in-game currency in No Man's Sky, I don't have to pay 16 grand of real life money. So
that's very true.
You don't have to. Okay.
I mean, no,
I will
for
absolutely
some of them
agree.
you
They
have
have got a lot of money. However, the
And
fact
delivered
that
very
that's
little
kind of
for it.
just how that's definitely a very debatable topic in its own right. Because
I mean, if you
they
compare
have
it to
developed a
Elite
lot.
as like a 1-to-1, like for the amount, like per pound spent, they have developed like
Oh,
2%.
per pound spent, yeah.
Yeah, they made like
Absolutely.
$1 million off
I would argue
Kickstarter,
that
didn't they?
what Star Citizen has done, that like Elite's done, they've done more detailed, but that is kind of the point of Star Citizen, to be fair. Compared to Elite Dangerous, it's not meant to be as in depth in certain systems.
No, yeah.
But I mean, you can pay 45. I'll be honest, I don't know when it's like out of alpha what the plans are. I think you currently get into the game for $45, which is, depending on what you want, that's
Questionable.
a fair, yeah. It's either a fair amount to some people or
I
not
should
much
point.
at all.
I was laughing there because it was 45, and that's such an oddly specific number, not just like around 10. I think 45 is reasonable, especially if you argue that to compare it to Elite Dangerous, to get into Elite with comparable features which will need an expansion pass, it's about the same amount of money.
I want to say, I don't know if that's 45 including the story mode. Because the story mode is a separate part of
Well, yeah,
Star
Star Citizen's
Citizen.
like sort of like 40 games as well, but that's a whole other issue.
Okay.
The standard starter pack,
I think it's $20, isn't it?
$45.
Oh.
Yeah,
just
that's
gives you
what
Star
I was
Citizen. I
referring
don't think you can. I don't even know if you can play Squadron 42 currently. Actually. I
Oh,
thought
so you
could.
can pay it, but it's not out yet.
You can pledge to it.
Fair, Squadron 42 is where my
gameplay.
Squadron 42 is where my like knowledge ends.
Okay.
To be fair, I've not really heard about this today. I wondered why it was showing as a separate game when you click like games on their website, but that makes sense.
Yeah, isn't it just the story mode on
last
there?
I heard about Squadron 42 is it was like a first person, like, on foot but involving ships story mode that like is using what all the engine work and stuff that they've developed for Star Citizen to give you that experience. But granted, when I heard about it was like fucking, I don't know, maybe even 3-4 years ago. Like it was a while ago. And at that time, it was like a small tech demo in Star Citizen itself.
Okay.
And it has obviously grown a considerable amount since then.
Yeah, I think you still can though. Spend like, hey, if you want to buy a ship for $3,000 for some reason,
go ahead.
Go for it. Yeah, like I'm now trying to.
I remember Jack Frags. No, sorry.
It's still $3,000.
I remember Frankie on PC made a video about it, and I'm like, is he flexing or did he get sponsored?
Oof.
That is a big amount of money to spend on one ship.
For real.
That's what caused. That's why he doesn't upload anymore, because he went bankrupt because of that one purchase.
Star Citizen is a cool game, right? Like every bit of gameplay I've seen from it, as it's developed over the years, it is cool, right? Like I like space games. If that isn't obvious, I like Elite because it's a space game.
Yeah.
You know, but the problem I have with Star Citizen is how little they've done for the amount of money that they have received.
Yeah.
Because I just find it quite predatory. I would personally find it near enough borderline impossible to trust that the 16 grand I give for my cool ship is even going anywhere useful. Like,
I think it's very hard to.
I'm gonna buy the devs money at dinner. Sorry.
Yeah, buy the devs money. Good idea.
I guess
whilst
technically.
I agree and like could see that point of view, I think it's hard to put into perspective with any game, like money to work done. If you look at one of those Kickstarter games where they just ran off with the money, that's easy. I think in this case though, where they are going so in depth with systems, again, from what I understand and from last time I played, which was admittedly too long ago, I think it gets a bit fairer when you consider. Okay. Here's what's I think it will definitely be fair once it's actually out, and like properly out. Right now,
Yeah.
it's more than playable. There's a lot going on, but once it's properly there, then I think we'll be.
From the gameplay I've seen, this is like talking like 5 months ago. It looks pretty good at the state it's at. I wouldn't say it's 2 million good, but it's good. Yeah, it's one of those games I would be interested in playing, to be completely honest.
Yeah,
Because
I
I
mean,
like to
hell yeah.
explore. So Elite
I
Dangerous.
think it's just for me it really is just like the amount of money, like
Isn't it
how do I
someone's
word it?
birthday
Like,
soon? Potentially they could get it on their birthday.
what are they at now? Yeah, so they're in total now they're at 300 million USD,
Oof.
Jesus
and for like the amount that they've made, from that, like in comparison to what Elite did with the original game for 12 million, it's like, like, don't get me wrong, like I'm not trying to compare original Elite to even current Star Citizen. I mean, obviously Elite's grown a lot over the years, but I'm just saying, like, I would feel much more comfortable with Star Citizen if they had taken I think they initially raised like 100 and something million in like the first pretty early period. Like if they had produced a more like if they'd focused on one specific area and got it to like 100% polish, so that there was that to then be like, look, we can do this to this level of polish. Because having not played, from what I've seen of reviews and videos on YouTube and stuff, what they have right now is pretty good in places and obviously lacking in others, but none of it is like done yet, so to speak, right? Like there isn't a single thing in the game that could be described as finished.
Yeah.
In a complete sense. And I think I would have much rather like finished a section sort of first, because again, like for me, it's about like, how the hell do I justify spending that much money on this game? Not that I probably would anyway. Like, I feel sorry for the people that do spend this much money on these ships, because it doesn't.
Yeah,
they haven't yet demonstrated that they can actually do this thing that they're claiming to do. It's like the
I think
longest
that's
going
just a
runaway
large
with
amount of
Kickstarter money.
Like, yeah.
And they've got 70 million. 65 million in a investment as well, I should point out.
I would like to
which
say
Elite also had, not that much, but it also had private investment, which is relevant to mention.
I feel like the thing with you compare 16 grand and you don't get, like, it is a completely valid argument. I completely agree with you. You should be, at least, I don't know, it feels like it is, you should be getting more out of that, I guess. But my only thing to that is, depending on obviously what they said, it's like tier 2 and tier 3 subbing on Twitch. You're doing it out of kindness of out of your pocket, You're just helping out someone. Again, it's a little different, £40 compared to 16 grand, but
no, yeah,
I feel like it's the same idea. I can understand, especially if you're one of those people who spent that money expecting more out of it. Why, for one, but two, I feel like if you're spending that sort of money, you probably have spare. You're doing it out of the kindness of your heart to see where this game goes or to help them out in some way.
I guess one way of describing it is like Fredo mentioned, there are those Kickstarters, right? That just like take the money and then up and leave. They literally just fuck off.
Yeah.
Right? But there are also those Kickstarters that like lead a group of people on, kind of like them doing the thing they said they would, and keep releasing like small incremental updates, but never actually get anywhere.
It's like,
I cannot tell if Star Citizen is just honestly really, really fucking bad at time management, not necessarily particularly good at communicating, or if they are the most successful ever, longest running
Scam, yeah.
Kickstarter that is just slowly, incorrectly releasing stuff that isn't actually going to end in the end goal that they've claimed to supposedly be going
Are
for.
you saying?
Um,
Are you referencing that hammer that Luke paid for that's been going on for 7 years?
Oh God, that fucking thing.
I hope that
I hate
comes
that I
out
know
just
that.
for the joy of the guy's heart. 'cause
Also, to compare it to a tier 1 sub as whatever, right? Absolutely, it is something that someone is choosing to do. It's not an obligation to play the game. Like in this case, you have to purchase the game, right? In comparison to a Twitch stream, which is technically accessible for free.
Yes,
You know, it's
absolutely.
monetized for adverts. Like Star Citizen could be free and monetized for adverts. Like, it would
Yeah.
be absurd. Obviously, it would not do well if that was the case. But it's also to
I
say
can
that
see
that's
that
just
in the
a
Elite
choice you
Dangerous
can make.
stations.
Could you imagine? That'd be so
I
awful.
really can as well.
I
I can
hate
see
that. That's so easy
McDonald's
to
for some
imagine.
reason.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, oh God. To say that the 16 grand is just a choice someone makes and not predatory is to also imply that a Twitch sub isn't predatory. That hype trains aren't inherently predatory. Don't get me wrong. I think in general they're considerably less predatory than a lot of other methods like microtransactions, right? But there is a culture of subbing on Twitch. It gives you exclusivity. In general, whether they mean to or not, subscribers get better treatment in someone's Twitch chat, right? Like, so there is a an addiction, a sort of pressure to subscribe to someone on Twitch, right? No matter how much you even if you individually as a streamer respond to every single non-sub that chats, that isn't just spamming or a bot or whatever. You do everything you can. You absolutely stress on your broadcast. You do not need to sub. It is not necessary whatsoever. Say you don't even upload sub emotes, right? Let's say you go to that level, right? Say anytime a hype train starts in your chat, you actively call it out and say this is a scam. You don't need to do sub now just because this is on. Like, it's not relevant. Don't feel pressured just because you want an arbitrary emote on a website that actually has zero value. Like, even if you went to that extreme, other people on Twitch pressure people into doing it. So you can't escape from the fact that people are pressured into subbing, because that's how that works. It's how Twitch makes money. So
yeah,
like, there's
constantly
always
advertising for it, man.
there's always that ethical side of it. No matter how you word it, like, it is inherently a part of the equation of a sub, a part of the equation in spending 16 grand on a ship. That's just how that works.
That's fair.
Sadly, that's an issue of how capitalism works in general more than it is the specific cases. But yeah. I don't know. Star Citizen is just worrying to me.
That's fair. All personal opinions. We'll have to see.
I'm
I'm
excited. All
excited.
stemmed from a conversation about Odyssey.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I much prefer. So that I much prefer. I much prefer Star Citizen for the detail and the ability to walk around your ship and all that. But I prefer Elite Dangerous for the ships themselves, the actual elements of gameplay in it. I don't know. There's positives from both, and I wouldn't mind playing Star Citizen, because I enjoy playing Elite Dangerous. The same reason I enjoy playing No Man's Sky. They're just all fun games that have different elements to them, but they're all enjoyable in their own way. Which that's what a game's about. So.
I mean, I would absolutely argue that Elite Dangerous is the better game than Star Citizen, but Star Citizen is theoretically, if complete, the better game than Elite Dangerous.
So, how much are you
and
being
I think
paid?
Most reasonable people would.
How much are you being paid to say that?
I wish I was being sponsored by Frontier. Hit me up, Dave.
Dave, come
Do you
on,
like being
Dave.
called Dave?
Oh, I don't know.
probably
Are
not.
we on first name?
I'll call him Mr. David.
Are we on first name acquaintances? First name
I'm
acquaintances?
probably not on first name acquaintances, no. I don't know. I like a lot of what Elite does. I am very critical of a lot of what Elite does, but I do think it's a good game.
No, yeah, Elite Dangerous is definitely a good game. I'm a little upset you have to pay 30 quid to play Odyssey, but hey ho. It is technically a separate part of the game.
I understand why. I would just say be thankful that
they're not Activision.
What was at one point a potential future for Elite is like a subscription-based service, or similar, right? Be glad that the way it's going to work is that you buy the game, you get the expansion. And considering if you think of it like you hadn't previously paid the money, and to be fair, I think honestly the biggest issue is if you have previously paid for Elite and Horizons, especially if you did not get Elite and Horizons at particularly reasonable prices. Like technically at this point, like excluding cosmetics and stuff, I think I would be close to spending like £100 on Elite at this point.
Am I right in saying, just very quickly, the Horizons Pass as well? I could be wrong. Am I right in saying it was the same price the entire time you could buy it? Is
Oh
that?
God, I
I don't
couldn't
know.
comment for 100% certainty. I think it had sales though. I'm not 100%, but I think there were sales of the season pass for Horizons. But not until very late in its
Because I was wondering
cycle
if you pay
when
the same amount.
oh God, what did they call it? The next expansion that's technically part of Horizons and was for free that added like all of the Fargoid and alien stuff. I can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
That like in that sort of period, it had some sales. I think maybe by like a couple quid. Like I don't remember exactly. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is that I think if you imagine you never purchased or spent any money on Elite, considering that the base game can regularly be found on, well, not regularly, but can sometimes be found on sale for like 5 to 10 quid. That now includes Horizons. One, that's a steal. You should totally pick it up if you're interested in space games. But number two, like paying that plus like £30, like 35, 40 quid for the scope of Odyssey as a full package, I think is more reasonable. I think the flaw in the paid expansion system is that it's for people that have previously paid, right? If you're coming into it new, I think it's actually not that unreasonable a price for the scope of the game. Obviously, I think everyone would obviously wish it was cheaper. That's a thing people wish for everything. But it's relatively reasonable. But if you've played previously, I think the question can be often like, how do you thank those players for historically supporting the game by buying those things? What in-game items, if any, do you give them to reward that? How do you go about navigating that? Because as someone that bought Elite and then Horizons and then Odyssey, like I'm at the point where if this continues, if 10 years down the line Elite is releasing its next expansion for £30, I'm going to be spending quite a lot of money on just the game. But someone coming into it might only be spending, like say after Odyssey they do one that has like full complete atmospheric flight on every single body in the game, so you can land on Earth-like planets and fly around, and you've got like Microsoft Flight Simulator level Earth-like planets that you can just fly around on in your ships, like, which would be cool as shit. Like like, and they were charging the base game plus the expansion or whatever, end up coming to like £45-50. I think that would again be arguably a reasonable price for that product. It's just that, like, for me, as someone that has bought the previous expansions when they released, like, that then becomes like, God, that's a lot of money that I've spent.
No, yeah, it is.
So, like, one thing I think that I would like to see, and this might be a controversial hot take, I can't remember exactly what they're doing for Odyssey. For the Horizons merge into the base game. I think that is technically a skin or something you get for a few ships. And maybe some decals or like a bubblehead or something. Like, so I think there's some in-game cosmetics you get for being like an original purchaser of Horizons that will be exclusive to you and no one else will ever be able to get since the merge.
Decals?
But, yeah, decals, whatever you want to call them.
Decals is what I've heard. I hate it when people say decals.
That's awful. But I would honestly like for something as the scope of Odyssey, like they have ship kits as an example, right? That add like bits to the end of your ship model, so you can put like pieces of scrap on your ship and make it look like it's been sort of constructed back together if you're like a pirate, or you can have like really nice clean like spoilers added to your ship if you want like you've gone to like Lakon and got your Lakon ship modified or whatever. Like there's loads of different things. Like I think ship kits that are exclusive through to maybe an entirely exclusive ship would be more the way of doing it. Like, say maybe they made an exclusive ship that any expansion purchasers got whenever an expansion was merged. So say that ship, for the sake it was just called the Horizon, right? Like the all original Horizons owners will get the Horizon. When Odyssey merges with the base game for the release of Ingenuity as a example future expansion of the game, all people then get the Horizon. Like I think something like that would be a better way of rewarding your historical players, in my opinion. Because the grind to get a mid to top end ship in Elite, especially for a new player, can be quite a lot. And I think giving them like a unique way to fly around and be like, hey, look, I supported this game. I have like a very physical, very significant to the gameplay thing to represent that. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it should be like overpowered or pay to win in any sense. It should just be ideally a 1-to-1 equivalent ship. of like one of the ships that are popular, right? Like say like the Aspects is one of the most popular ships, not because it's by any means the best ship in the game. It's just very good at doing general all-roundy, I want to fly here and do a bit of everything stuff, and it sounds very nice and it's very pretty and fun to fly. It flies really well. It's easy to, people just like it.
Yeah.
Like maybe just you've got the Asp Explorer, the Asp Scout. Maybe there's like the Asp Horizons or something, and you get just a different looking Asp that's effectively 1-to-1 with the Asp Explorer. It just looks different, and you get a skin for it or something. Like I think that would be what I would like to see personally.
That's fair.
I'd feel less concerned about having spent money on the game then, because I feel like it's
got something out of this.
It feels like I've been rewarded for supporting the game when I did in the past, right?
Yeah, I guess it's also just you are supporting the developer in what they're doing. Like I spent £80 on Squad to get 2 versions of the game, which retail for £30 each. So I spent more than I didn't get a good deal out of it, but I supported them because this was on the Kickstarter, so my name's in the credits. The wrong name, may I say, but my name's in the credits nonetheless. And I supported the game. I would say that's a similar thing for what you're doing. Is you're helping them make something that they want to do, and financially doing it in a way that they will also give you something back for it. It's not game breaking. It's not overpowered. It's just something to say thank you, and you can say, cool, I got this. I did my part, and I get to play a game that I enjoy. As well as get early access to it. So it's that element of it as well. So yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. I'm excited to see where both Elite Dangerous go. Where I say No Man's Sky, but they've kind of gone like quite far. That it'd be interesting to see what else they do with it. But especially Star Citizen and any other future space games that may come out. It would be interesting to see what happens. The whole idea of Elite Dangerous as well, like when it's finished, when it's its full game, when they finally stop development and it's properly released, it's going to be interesting to see how that is. Same with Star Citizen and future games, we don't know. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Should point that Elite doesn't technically have a written on paper defined final vision for the game.
No, but there will be a point where they stop.
Yeah, but it is generally expected that things like full atmospheric flight, full space legs where you can walk around a ship is planned. It's just quite a technological piece of work to get done.
Yeah.
I mean, Star Citizen alone proves that, right? Like, they're obviously, regardless of what you think of the game, pretty demonstrable that like the work that it takes to develop that at an engine level and stuff on the scale of space can be quite a task.
Yeah, and I would also like to say that both games have come from classic backgrounds. Elite Dangerous famously being an old not Commodore. I want to say ZX Spectrum game, but it used to be a game. That was it. It used to be an old game in the 80s.
1984, the original.
1984, yeah, there you go. And Star Citizen, the founder was one of the original devs on one of the Star Wars space fighting games. I can't remember what it's called. They both had, they both come from origins of this image of this ultimate space game, and they're still going towards them, because we live in a world where technology is ever growing and they can do this stuff. It is amazing to see where they go, and it's unfathomable to think what they could be. As you mentioned, this whole sort of like in planet flying like Microsoft Flight Simulator to like a really realistic level, to then going, landing, walking around, shooting a few enemies, collecting your bounty, and doing whatever you really want. Both games seem to be going for that sort of realistic space exploration game.
The scale of both games theoretically is more than pretty much any other game. Really, like it's going to be years off either of them getting to anywhere near that. But if they ever achieve it, I mean, it would be something else.
It'd be phenomenal. But then they've got plenty of time. They've got the money behind them.
Maybe Elite Dangerous is the boat simulator we've been looking for.
Yes. Imagine it got to the point where they could simulate the Suez Canal cargo ship getting stuck on planet Earth in Elite Dangerous. you flying down to see it. Right. That's yeah. I think we should start calling it
Damn,
a bit of
didn't
an
you
end
talk
there.
about the Minecraft topics? Dear, oh
I'm
dear.
sorry. There was Minecraft
We had
topics.
Minecraft topics.
Yeah, from when we were playing Minecraft, and we said, "Oh yeah, we should save those for the podcast."
Oh, that was more than
Oh,
this
yeah.
podcast. I don't remember what we were talking about.
Completely forgot about
yeah, I
those.
completely.
Wow.
I don't know what they are, so if anyone knows any,
They'll come
None of us
back
can
next
remember.
I
time.
remember us saying it, but I don't remember what they were.
I remember us saying it. I just don't remember what they were. Yeah, like on the exact same thing as you.
Yeah.
Right. No, we definitely. I really enjoyed this podcast, to be honest, because it was genuinely a lot of fun talking about the topics we spoke about. Obviously, the controversial one. You know, it was interesting. It was certainly interesting. We went on a few different tangents about that, but it really did give us an insight into this game and potentially what could happen to it. But no, as always, before we end, is there anything you two would like to promote, talk about?
Twitch.tv/tacticaltv.
Okay, appreciate that. I'm going to say youtube.com/delicious, because you were lucky enough to get a fucking custom URL.
Yeah, it's pretty lucky.
Good enough, lucky enough. I slogged day and night for that. Damn. Take back my recommendation now.
I'll promote the hit video game, Elite Dangerous. I guess.
David, give him his money.
It's good fun.
No, it is.
Sometimes.
We
Asterisk.
did our streams on there, and it was a lot of fun.
We still, not to continuously extend the podcast, but we need to do a canyon running stream at some point.
yeah.
Where we all get in
Yeah.
speedy ships and do canyon running. Like that needs to happen.
Also, I'm not going to say that because that's going to annoy you. So never mind.
Okay, well,
Oh,
we
we'll never
avoided
know.
that heartbreak.
But no, yeah, I really appreciate you guys being here as always, and for everybody watching, thank you very, very much. We'll see you guys next week, and don't forget this will be up on YouTube, as well as Spotify, Breaker, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and the rest. Appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yes. Are we doing like a special YouTube outro as well?
Oh,
Should we
you
do
know
a
me
special
too
YouTube?
well. You know me
Oh my
too
God, we're
well.
not. Are we
Yeah,
actually?
yeah.
Oh, for...
So, you know.
I said everything I need to. I'm gone. Enjoy the podcast.
Okay, we'll just cut it there then. We'll just cut it there. Right, thanks guys. Yeah, check us out next week, I guess.